This week on Jerusalem Dateline, a look at the Kurdish military, the one fighting group standing up to ISIS, plus exclusive interviews with Yazidis caught in the grip of the Islamic State, and an in-depth look at the plight of Jews inside Belgium. Is it time to go? Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. There's new developments in the fight against ISIS. The United States Defense Secretary announced the U.S. military will deploy a special operations force to Iraq to step up attacks against the Islamic State. Caitlin Burke has the story.
It's being called a belated step forward. The new group of special operations forces headed to Iraq will conduct raids, free hostages, gather intel, and go after top Islamic State targets.
When they go to bed at night, who's going to be coming in the window? The United States is, and I think must, lead in this fight, but we need others to go with us.
Defense Secretary Ash Carter said the U.S. forces would likely be mixed in with Kurdish fighters who are already battling ISIS. He didn't offer up the number of U.S. soldiers that would be deployed.
Through our own action and those of our coalition partners, the military campaign will destroy ISIL's leadership and forces, deprive it of resources and safe haven and mobility. All the while we seek to identify and then enable motivated local forces on the ground to expel ISIL from its territory, hold and govern it, and ensure that victory sticks.
The move comes as the nation's top military officer directly contradicted remarks made by President Obama last month when he said the U.S. has contained ISIS.
Let me ask you this. Have we currently contained ISIL?
We have not contained ISIL.
Have they been contained at any time since 2010?
Tactically, in areas they have been. Strategically, they have spread since 2010.
And while ISIS is gaining territory in the Middle East, it's also gaining support internationally, including right here in America. A new study by George Washington University says several thousand Americans regularly consume Islamic State propaganda. American ISIS supporters are predominantly active online. Twitter is the platform of choice, but ISIS supporters are using other social media as well. Just another sign of the growing danger from this radical Islamist movement. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
ISIS may be gaining support internationally, but many military experts say the first thing to do in the fight against the Islamic State is to arm the Kurdish military. More than a year ago, Kurdish officers on the front lines told us they need advanced weapons to fight ISIS. When we were back on the front lines recently, we found out that effort still has a long way to go. The Kurdish military secured one of its biggest victories recently by retaking the strategic town of Sinjar. Still, the overall challenge in confronting the Islamic State is daunting. The Kurdish military, known as the Peshmerga, hold a more than 600-mile line against ISIS. That includes key towns like Makmur behind me, which controls access to Erbil, the capital of Kurdistan. This is the one fighting force holding its own against ISIS.
Look, the PKK affiliate in Syria are the ones that are doing the heavy lifting there, too. From Kobani all the way west. They're the ones that are doing the effective fighting. It isn't anybody else. It isn't the guys that we trained up.
Retired U.S. Colonel Richard Knabb has worked with the Kurds for nearly 25 years. He says it's in America's interest to support them.
Surely they're an ally of the U.S. that we need. They love America more than I think some Americans do. They're good people, and they're a good friend to have in your court, and they're very important for this region. I would support the Kurds. The Kurds are going to be the mainstream. They're going to be the guys that can deal with Iran, they can deal with Syria, and they can do it for us.
Despite those positives, the Kurds still haven't received the kind of heavy arms they've requested from the U.S.
It has to do with some sort of funky diplomatic legality, which is irrelevant here. These people are fighting for their lives. And in a way, they're fighting for our lives in the future. Because if they can kill this radical Islam here, so it doesn't migrate to the States, it doesn't become more popular. It's pretty popular now.
We talk with Mahmoud, a Kurdish sniper, about the lack of advanced weapons. He responded with a message for Americans.
The Americans should realize that we're fighting an Islamic Caliphate state. It's not easy. Even though we're suffering from a lack of advanced weapons, we've stood against ISIS. They should realize that with our limited military resources, we can fight them, and we will keep fighting them. It's very important for them to know that we also need their help, their military support.
He says the Kurds are standing in the gap for the free world.
You know, the Kurds proved to the whole world that they're the only force which can stand against ISIS. We're stopping them on the front line so they won't cross the border. Because if they cross the border, the free world will be attacked by ISIS. We're fighting ISIS on behalf of the whole free world.
Nab says Americans need to know strength makes a big difference here.
I think they need to know that the Middle East needs a strong U.S. presence, a strong, forceful presence. Part of that is we can exhibit by supporting the Kurds, I think, our friends here. But we are weak here, and when we are weak, the whole thing comes around. Now you see the Russians coming back in Syria, you think things going not better, but worse.
Coming up, Muslims from Belgium committed the Paris attacks. Find out why Jews from that country aren't at all surprised. What if you lived in fear that you could get shot simply by going to the grocery store? That's the reality for Jews living in Belgium. We've been reporting for years that Belgium is a hotbed for radical Islam. And now the Jews who live in that country worry they will be the next target. Dale Hurd brings us this in-depth report.
Belgium used to be a safe place for Jews. Not so much anymore. Many of the killers in the recent Paris attacks were Belgian Muslim radicals, the kind who are violently anti-Semitic. In a series of interviews conducted before the attack, Belgian Jews told CBN News that life in Belgium was still good, but the possibility of danger was ever present.
The idyllic years are over. The tranquil years are definitely over. It can come. You can go to a grocery, and all of a sudden somebody could shoot you down. You can go to a museum, and the same can happen.
Professor Julien Klenner was a hidden child during the Holocaust, while half of Belgium's Jews were sent to Nazi death camps. Now he must face it all again.
How comes that the Shoah was not able to quiet down people about Jews? Why didn't that disappear into the oblivion of history, like so many other ludicrous approaches? Why is it still there? What have I done to deserve that?
At the heavily protected Jewish Takamoni school in Antwerp, Director Jan Maas told us the school's history and how in World War II it was liberated by Allied troops.
So these are all American soldiers, I think, here. The U.S. Army, USA, 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 USA. We are very grateful to them.
And Maas shared how during part of the Nazi occupation of Belgium, the principal at Takamoni was an SS officer.
And I know from one of the former students, he told me, he got his Star of David here in school. He got it here in school.
Today, the school's students are threatened again by forces in Belgium that want to kill them. Michael Greenberg is the head of Jewish studies at Takamoni.
If we think that it's not enough secure to let them to go outside during the day, we keep all the students here during the day.
Most of them get over the fact that, yes, for most of the activities, you need protection. You need security.
At Beth Chabad Synagogue in Brussels, Rabbi Shimon Lasker said he personally thinks reports of anti-Semitism are overblown. Yet outside, they removed the sign for the synagogue because it kept getting vandalized.
They came in the middle of the prayers, the Jewish security, to announce that when you go home, please be careful. Don't walk too many people together. Don't try to show that Jews are walking on the street. Could you imagine? That's what we have to think about? How to walk on the street?
Today, you have anti-Semitism from the left and the extreme left, anti-Semitism that is going into a form that's called anti-Zionism, and you have anti-Semitism from the Arab and Muslim communities.
Vivian Teitelbaum, a member of the Brussels Region Parliament, says the government isn't doing enough to stop it.
It's being a problem in schools, it's a problem on the streets, it's a problem with graffitis on the wall, it's a problem of security, it's a problem, it's a problem in many different aspects of our daily lives.
In the Flemish town of Mechelen, the Holocaust Museum has been built next door to a former German army barracks, where Jews were deported to concentration camps. Claude Marinover, vice chairman of the museum and vice mayor of Antwerp, says Belgian Jews today should not have to risk being attacked in the street for looking Jewish.
There is no reason whatsoever that a Jew, religious or not, should walk down a street from a city, big or small, in Belgium, with the fear of being attacked because of that. Unacceptable.
Serge Rosen, president of the Jewish Congress in Belgium, is worried about the rise of anti-Semitism, but cautions that it is not like the pre-Nazi period.
When people start to compare the situation of the Jews now with what existed before the war, I don't think that's relevant as a comparison. I think we are well integrated in the societies. The mainstream societies accept us, respect us. The political authorities support us.
But it's a fair question to ask if some Jews are in denial over the danger they face. The same was asked of Jews in Europe during the 1930s, when it was said that the pessimist left for New York. The optimist went to Auschwitz. Even when the trains came for them, some Jews believed they were being taken to a better life and not to certain death. Europe today is not Nazi Germany, but anti-Semitism is worsening. And yet many Jews again choose to hope because they don't want to leave. But with the Muslim migrant surge from the Middle East, even more anti-Semitism is being imported into Europe. Baron Jacques Brochi is a neurosurgeon and Belgian senator.
They import the conflict of the Middle East. And due to that, the message is not a message of living together. It's not a message of love. It's a message of sometimes killing Jews.
For most Jews everywhere, whether to stay or go comes down to the welfare of their children.
Is Belgium the place for the future of their children or the future for them to continue living?
And for increasing numbers of Jews, the answer to that question is no.
Security? Look, send your kids to a Jewish school here in Brussels or even in Antwerp. What do you see? Paratroopers? Is that a normal life?
After the recent Paris attack, Zaka, the Israeli emergency response team, held drills with Belgian Jews on how to deal with terror attacks and so-called mass casualty events, a clear sign that some fear the worst.
Belgium has to start fighting so that its Jewish community can stay here, because a democracy that cannot defend its minorities is not a democracy anymore.
Dale Hurd, CBN News, in Brussels and Antwerp, Belgium.
Coming up, the plight of the Yazidi people, sold as sex slaves or forced into jihad. Recently, we visited a UN refugee camp where thousands of Yazidis found refuge after fleeing ISIS. We heard horrific stories from both a 19-year-old girl sold as a sex slave, a 14-year-old boy trained to be a jihadist, and from the men trying to save hundreds more, still caught in the grip of the Islamic State. In just one day, thousands of Yazidis went from living in their ancient homeland to a UN refugee camp like this one. After ISIS captured Sinjar, the main city of the Yazidis, most of them live now in camps like this. Nearly 20,000 live in this one alone. But a few here have made the harrowing escape out of the hands of ISIS.
So when they were selling us girls, the buyer would come in to take his slave. If any of us refused, they would beat us very badly. No one went with the buyers willingly.
ISIS captured this 19-year-old girl who we named Nazda to protect her identity. She spent 10 months as a sex slave after ISIS sold her to an Arab man for the equivalent of $800 US.
The man was really bad. He treated me like an animal. He had 4 wives and they had no sympathy for me. I was beaten and treated very badly.
ISIS tried to convert Nazda to Islam and dealt harshly with anyone trying to help women like Nazda.
They brought 3 men into the ISIS court. They were accused of helping the women who had become Yazidi sex slaves. They killed them, beheaded them in front of us. They showed us that this is the fate of anybody trying to help you.
ISIS also captured hundreds of young boys, including 14-year-old Mamo.
They insulted us and told us we were unclean. They accused us of being blasphemers, unbelievers who didn't believe in Islam or Allah. They taught us the Quran and also trained us how to use heavy weapons. Later, they told us we should be jihadists just like them and convert to Islam.
After months of this indoctrination, Mamo miraculously escaped by convincing his captors he was ill. They put him with his mother, which gave them the opportunity to flee. These are pictures of what Mamo escaped. Here you have 32 young Yazidi boys posing with an Islamic State flag, and here they've already graduated. These are meant to be the jihadis of the next generation of the Islamic State. Their goal was clear:
to convert us, then to make us into jihadi, and then kill our own people, the Yazidis.
He also explained what ISIS told them their ultimate goals were.
They said we will not leave any place, even a small part of the world, without Islam.
Nazda heard the same goal.
They told me they are not a state of Mosul or Raqqa or anywhere. They said it's not a small state. Islamic State is a big state and can cover the whole world.
While Mamo escaped ISIS, many Yazidis like Nazda have been rescued through the efforts of men like Abdullah. He acts as a go-between for captured Yazidis by negotiating with their captors.
Before ISIS took over Sinjar, I used to buy and sell things inside Syria. Now, with my relationship with the people in Syria, I use that relationship to rescue people.
So far, Abdullah has rescued at least 138 Yazidis. I asked him the cost to rescue 1 or 2.
It depends. Sometimes we bring them for free without any money, sometimes for just $1,000, sometimes $5,000. It's different.
This is a screenshot that Abdullah showed me from a captured ISIS cell phone. It shows Twitter accounts where ISIS members can communicate between each other to buy and sell sex slaves. The Kurdish government set up this office to help rescue the nearly 6,000 captured Yazidis. So far, Hadi Dabani and his team have helped more than 2,000. They hear horrific stories.
Describing their situation is very hard, because some of the girls have told us they have had their hands tied for 3 months, have been harassed and forced to have sex. Imagine having sex with the mother in front of her son and then killing the son.
The plight of one 13-year-old brought Dubani to tears.
I tried very hard to rescue her. She's been married 5 times. She has also been imprisoned.
Success stories like Nazda make their efforts worthwhile, and Dubani pleads for more help.
Is it acceptable that the international community or the UN, who know that nearly 6,000 people have been kidnapped by ISIS and have experienced persecution, harassments, and treated like animals, keep silent? They don't make any steps to help.
The Kurdish offensive that retook Sinjar might alleviate some of their suffering. Until then, many Yazidis, like these small children, remain in refugee camps, and other Yazidis continue to languish in the clutches of ISIS. Up next, Hanukkah. It's a celebration more than 2,000 years old. See how they celebrate the holiday in Jerusalem's Old City. 8 days, Jewish people around the world celebrate Hanukkah. It's a holiday marking a great victory more than 2,000 years ago. We visited the old city of Jerusalem to meet one family and take a look at the festive lights. Thousands of Israelis come to Jerusalem's old city at Hanukkah to celebrate and see the lights. All over the world, Jews say special prayers, thanking God for miracles past and present, and light a special candelabra or menorah called a Hanukkah for 8 days.
This is a holiday about spirituality. This is a holiday about values. This is a holiday about connecting to God. So many Israelis come here. Everybody's attracted to the light.
CBN News joined Rebecca Spiro and her family for the Jewish celebration.
It's a holiday that celebrates religious freedom and our victory against oppression and our ability to rededicate the temple.
And her children?
The presents and the parties and the lots club.
We have groups coming all the time, and we go on trips, and it's fun, and it's just fun.
In the 2nd century BC, the Jewish people in Judea revolted against the Syrian Greek conquerors. The Seleucids tried to impose their culture, forcing the Jews to eat pork and forbidding Sabbath observance, Torah reading, and circumcision. Worse still, the Seleucids defiled the Jewish temple in Jerusalem and dedicated it to the Greek god Zeus. Led by a priestly family known as the Maccabees, the Jewish people retook Jerusalem and rededicated the temple. But when they wanted to light the menorah, there was only a tiny bit of sacred olive oil left.
We celebrate the 8 days that the menorah burned, which is a miracle. It was beyond nature, and also the military victory.
Spiro's family and neighbors also have their own personal tradition to build unity between secular and religious Israelis.
Every single year we bring out a table of drinks, and thousands of people come to the old city for Hanukkah to look around and see the menorahs and light, and then we give out hot drinks to all the people that come.
Spiro says there's a message in the holiday for today.
The world's coming up against Israel. The wolves are circling the sheep. This is nothing new. And the message of Hanukkah is that no matter what happens, our candles burn bright. And civilizations have come and gone, but the Jewish people are still here.
Seeing those lights in the old city of Jerusalem is quite a sight. Well, that's it for this edition. To all our Jewish friends, happy Hanukkah. Thanks for joining us. And remember, you can follow us throughout the week on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.